Welcome back to another Kray video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really interested in the Krays, check out our private Facebook group, Krays, Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly and moderated group which has been running since January 2018. Please come and give us a try.
By the 1950s, London's gangland had become a dark and almost mythical realm. But the subterranean River Tyburn, the underworld, rolled on beneath London, populated by legendary old faces such as Billy Hill and Jack Spot Comer, the terrifying Messina family, and intimidating newcomers such as the Kray twins and their firm. Billy Hill had been the first to build a new empire of crime among the city rubble of post-war London. He literally carved out his territory, inflicting vicious knife wounds upon the faces of those who offended him, often in the shape of V for victory. Hill insisted that chiving, as he referred to it, was only used as a last resort. After someone glassed him in a pub, he pulled the glass out of his face with one hand and set about chiving his assailant with the other, wounding with surgical precision. Hill had teamed up with Jack Spot Comer, a Jewish racecourse racketeer, noticed for his flamboyant dress sense and big cigars. Comer was also a self-appointed enforcer to the Jewish community. In 1936, Comer had taken on Oswald Mosley's black shirts during the Battle of Cable Street. Together, Hill and Comer had set about seizing the Sabini Empire from another gangster, Harry White. After the Italian Sabini gang had been interred as enemy aliens during the Second World War, Harry White had taken over their realm of nightclubs, spielers, and brothels. Hill and Comer arrested it off him in a showdown forever after known as the Battle of the Stork Club. In July 1947, Harry White was drinking in the Stork Club in Piccadilly with the racecourse trainer Tim O'Sullivan and another man when Comer walked in with 10 heavies. Comer accused White of anti-Semitism and smashed a bottle over his head, and White collapsed in a pool of blood. Comer's men then attacked O'Sullivan and a third man. O'Sullivan was beaten unconscious and pushed into an open fire. The third man was slashed with razors and stabbed. According to Comer, White scarpered as soon as he was able. Afterwards, Billy Hill crowned himself the Bandit King of London with Comer in the role of trusted courtier and masterminded a series of breathtakingly audacious armed robberies. The first of these was the East Castle Street robbery in May 1952, when a team of masked men held up a Royal Mail van just off Oxford Street and escaped with £287,000, about £6 million in today's money. This was a real project crime, planned and executed with military precision. The robbers used 2 cars to sandwich the van. The first car emerged slowly from the side street, causing the van to slow down. The second car then pulled up alongside. The driver and 2 attendants were dragged out, coshed, and the van was stolen. It was then found abandoned near Regent's Park. The Prime Minister Winston Churchill demanded daily updates, and yet despite the involvement of nearly 1,000 police officers, nobody was ever caught. 2 years later, Hill was behind another massive heist. Again, despite constant suspicion and allegations that Hill was behind the robberies, no one was ever brought to justice. Meanwhile, Jack Comer, tired of playing second fiddle, was making his own bid for power. Fearing a coup, Hill had Comer and his wife Rita ambushed by Mad Frankie Fraser and his gang of thugs. Rita was knocked to the ground, fortunately unhurt, but Comer was slashed with razors and required 78 stitches and a blood transfusion. Scarred for life, Comer refused to name his attackers, but Rita had no such reservations and Fraser went down for 7 years. Comer had learnt his lesson and retired to Ireland. While Billy Hill was organizing textbook armed robberies, a sinister family known as the Messinas had seized control of the vice racket. The Messina brothers, Sicilian by the way of Alexandria, had arrived in Britain in the 1930s and operated by importing foreign girls, usually from France and Italy on forced passports, marrying them off to compliant men and setting them to work the streets of the West End. Anyone who dared stand up to the Messinas was ruthlessly eliminated. Hefty backhanders to corrupt vice squad officers ensured the gang's immunity from prosecution. The Home Secretary at the time confessed in the House of Commons that nothing could be done about the gang. Despite the public outcry, the police did not interfere in these turf wars, which is when Duncan Webb of the Sunday People became involved. In true persuading journalism style, Webb went undercover to investigate the brothers. Posing as a punter, he interviewed dozens of Messina girls on their beats in the Shepherd's Market and Bond Street and was threatened and beaten up for his trouble. The main barrier to convicting the Messinas was anonymity, although Gina was a distinctive figure with his German street suits and flashy shoes. He and his brothers posed as antique dealers and used a number of English aliases, such as Charles Maillan and Edward Marshall, to evade detection. The Messinas had a word-of-mouth reputation who terrorized the London streets with thuggery, violence and corruption. They controlled an army of mythical women, not one of whom could be positively identified, and operated from scores of different addresses. The corrupt police officers on their side, and excellent lawyers, it proved almost impossible to get a contact to talk. At the mention of the name Messina, most interviewees would gulp down their drink and leave. The word carried an atmosphere of fear and horror to the average crook, whispered with hollowed awe and dubious respect. Despite continual threats of violence, Webb persevered with the investigation. On the 3rd of January 1950, Webb published his expose of the Messina gang and their empire of vice in the Sunday People. Scotland Yard followed up their inquiries and Alfredo Messina went to trial after a doomed attempt to bribe the arresting officers. The remaining brothers escaped to Europe, where they continued to run a vice racket before being arrested and jailed. As the underworld edged and flowed, old faces were lost to prison and death. Fresh contenders stepped forward eager to seize power. The most formidable of these was an up-and-coming pair of twins, former boxers who exuded an aura of menace. Their names were Ronnie and Reggie Kray. Like Bentley and Craig, and dozens of other wannabe gangsters before them, the young Krays had been inspired by Hollywood. The first time Ronnie Kray's nemesis Inspector Leonard Nipper Reed capped eyes on him in 1964. Ronnie Kray was arriving outside the Grave Maurice pub in Whitechapel like a member of the royal family. Stepping out of a big American car, dressed like a Chicago gangster in a long cashmere coat, with his hair greased and parted, he looked like Al Capone without his fedora. The Krays' reign of terror was unique. The gang, known as the Firm, gained exceptional domination over London's underworld. Attempts by Scotland Yard to collate or gather evidence against them were met with a wall of silence. Witnesses were intimidated or threatened with death if they talked to the police. Born on the 23rd of October 1933, the twins initially showed some promise in the boxing ring, but a dishonorable discharge from Army National Service and a spell in the military prison meant that they could not obtain the licenses they needed to turn professional. Instead, the Krays bought a rundown Regal billiard hall on the Mile End Road. Ronnie, openly homosexual despite the dangers of prosecution, had a constant supply of rent boys who doubled as his spies. Enforcement came in the form of violence through a beating or murder, but sometimes it took no more than an intimidating stare from the colonel, as Ronnie liked to call himself, to convince non-conforming people around them to the errors of their ways. By the end of the 1950s, the twins had made the East End their empire thanks to an extensive variety of protection racketeering, hijacking, armed robbery and arson. In February 1960, Peter Ratman, the violent racketeer landlord, offered Ronnie a nightclub called Esmeralda's Barn in Knightsbridge. The Krays were obsessed with show business and only too delighted to open their own West End club in which they could play host to such luminaries as Barbara Windsor, Diana Dawes, Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland. By the mid-1960s, the Krays controlled half of the illegal gambling clubs in London and had friends in high places, including the Tory peer, Lord Robert Boothby, and the homosexual Labour MP, Tom Dryburgh, who attended parties given by Ronnie where rent boys were offered around. When the Sunday Mirror published allegations of an affair between a prominent peer and a West End thug, Boothby sued for libel and accepted damages of £40,000. The police were ordered to drop their inquiries into the case and the newspapers were effectively silenced. While the Krays enjoyed their reign of London, the British public were briefly diverted by the Great Train Robbery, the crime of the century, during which £2.5 million was stolen from the Royal Mail night train from Glasgow to London. For sheer planning and execution, this job knocked the East Castle Street job, but with one major difference: Billy Hill's gang never got caught. The following years would see the Krays and their greatest rival, the scrap metal dealer Charlie Richardson, boss of the Richardson gang, sent to prison for unprecedented terms. Both the Krays and the Richardsons had used violence to control their empires. The Richardson gang was also known as the torture gang on account of their tough tactics used on gang members accused of disloyalty. Following a mock trial, gang members were punished with a range of penalties from cigarette burns to whipping and having their teeth pulled out with pliers, the latter being a speciality of Mad Frankie Fraser. When the torture trial opened at the Old Bailey in April 1967, witnesses who had turned Queen's evidence spoke of having toes removed with bolt cutters, being nailed to the floor and urinated upon or punished with the black box, an old field telephone with a hand-operated electricity generator which was used to administer electric shocks. Terminals were applied to the nipples of genitalia and the victim was sometimes immersed in a cold bath to increase the shock. Richardson, who denied the black box had ever existed, was sentenced to 25 years for grievous bodily harm, with the judge concluding, "It must be made clear to all those who set themselves up as gang leaders that they will be struck down with the law as you will be struck down." While the Krays must have been relieved to have their rival, Charlie Richardson, safely behind bars, they were beginning to lose control. Ronnie's psychopathic outbursts were intensifying, inspired by quantities of alcohol. He was already taking credit for the shooting of George Cornell in the Blind Beggar pub, and, fueled by gin and medication, had forgotten Billy Hill's warning that murder is for mugs. Then there had been the lapse of judgment that had led to the twins to help Frank the Mad Axeman Mitchell escape from Dartmoor prison in December 1966, only to discover that the burly loudmouth with the low IQ was an embarrassment. Mitchell refused to lie low in his safe house and wrote endless letters to the Home Secretary, petitioning for a pardon. According to Albert Donahue, Kray heavy, Mitchell was discreetly bundled into a van and shot. Freddie Foreman claimed that the body was disposed of at sea. Other sources state that he was buried in the foundations of a flyover. Personal tragedy was also taking its toll. Reggie's wife Frances died of an overdose in 1967, aged just 23, and Reggie's grief-stricken state of mind made him make a final lapse of judgment that was to bring the Krays down once and for all. He accepted Ronnie's request to kill Jack the Hat McVitie, a minor member of the Kray gang who had failed to kill the man with the briefcase, the twins' business fixer Leslie Payne, despite being paid £1,500 to do so. Jack the Hat was another liability. Constantly drunk and out of his mind on amphetamines, he would have to go. In October 1967, Tony Lambriana, a Kray firm associate, drove McVitie to Blonde Carol's flat in Stoke Newington, promising a party, birds and booze. But when McVitie walked into the basement flat, there was no party, just Ronnie and Reggie waiting for him. Reggie attempted to shoot McVitie in the head, but the gun failed to go off. When McVitie smashed a window in his attempt to escape, Ronnie hard-handed Reggie a carving knife, and the rest, as they say, is now history. McVitie's body was never recovered, but Ronnie enhanced his personal myth by circulating stories McVitie had been fed to pigs in Suffolk, burned in a smelting furnace, or buried under a motorway flyover. Despite the wall of silence, time was running out for the twins. Chief Inspector Nipper Reed contacted Leslie Payne, who had distanced himself from the Krays after they had taken a contract out on him. Payne gave the police a 146-page statement at considerable risk to his life after his family had been threatened by the Krays. Albert Donahue, once one of the firm's hard men, agreed to turn Queen's evidence, as did an American criminal, Alan Cooper. The Krays and 15 other members of the firm were arrested on the 9th of May 1968, and once they were in custody, witnesses developed the confidence to come forward and give evidence. The trial at the Old Bailey lasted for 39 days, and the twins were sentenced to life imprisonment with a non-parole period of 30 years for the murders of Cornell and McVitie, the longest sentences for murder ever passed at the Old Bailey. Charlie Kray was jailed for 10 years for his part in the murders. Ronnie Kray died in 1995, age 61, his passing commemorated by a lavish East End funeral that tens of thousands attended. Reggie was released from his life sentence on compassionate grounds in August 2000, suffering from inoperable cancer. He died in his sleep on the 22nd of September 2000 and was buried alongside his twin in Chingford Mount Cemetery. Half a century later, the Kray mythology endures. Even today, EastEnders reminisce sentimentally about the good old days, and the Krays represented an alternative method of law enforcement. Neighbors could leave their doors unlocked. Defenders of the Krays would tell you that they were devoted to their mother and they only killed their own, as if that somehow justified the brutal gangland executions. The Krays have inspired industrial quantities of books ranging from lurid memoirs to chronological dissertations and dozens of movies, novels, and television documentary programs. And this was the story of how the Kray twins and their firm ruled London.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.
Leave a like and subscribe.